In this presentation, I will share the work that I did as well as some key findings for my project investigating use of space scheduling for energy savings with the Department of Energy Management at UNC Chapel Hill. The Department of Energy Management at UNC Chapel Hill is responsible for monitoring, controlling, and reducing energy and water use in the buildings at UNC Chapel Hill. The mission of this department is to optimize existing infrastructure using in-house resources, implementing projects to upgrade infrastructure, and educating the campus community through outreach in order to make conservation a core value at UNC. So here I'm on the UNC Energy Management website, and there are many different resources about the energy usage on campus, as well as various reports and um, documents related to conservation efforts. So for my project, the motivation, so according to the Department of Energy in the United States, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, or HVAC system, use about 35 to 50% of commercial building energy. Many campus facilities HVAC system is running at full capacity from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Um, there are many modern technologies that allows flexibilities in controlling HVAC systems in terms of when they're on and off. We can control them remotely. Um, and the key motivation to this project is inspired by the HVAC system event scheduling system that's been implemented at the Carolina Student Union since 2014. They use a software called Events to HVAC, which I will go a bit more in depth about it later. But the main question is knowing that there are resources and technologies that can help us optimize um, energy conservation efforts. How can we continue our efforts in energy conservation and sustainability efforts at other facilities on campus at UNC Chapel Hill? The primary focus of this project is on energy saving opportunities in athletic facilities. Currently, most athletic buildings on campus are scheduled as occupied from 5 a.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. Monday through Sunday. When we say a building is occupied, we mean it equates to the HVAC system running at full capacity. So here outlines some of the responsibilities that I had for this project. So I researched the implementation of HVAC scheduling software at university settings, including UNC Chapel Hill, identify and implement strategies to reduce energy usage in UNC athletic facilities. To do that, I coordinated many meetings talking to folks in athletic facilities in order to accomplish the goals that we're trying to meet, which is to reduce energy usage. And then I analyzed the impact of the project, and then finally, lesson learned and next steps. So just to quickly run through some of the successes that I've had and some challenges that I've faced throughout working on this project. So a big success, a big win for us is we got approval from the athletic departments on the initiatives that we're trying to impose. That's a big win. I successfully identified spaces for energy savings, and I also gather a lot of fruitful information about events to HVAC that will be helpful in the future. Some of the challenges that I face include the scope of the project is to reduce occupancy hours for HVAC systems, right? So it's hard to convince people to make changes to their thermostats. Hard to mess with people's thermostats. It takes a lot of convincing. There's also labor constraints, so the scheduling software that we are trying to implement requires labor, and there's a labor constraint. Um, and finally, many of the buildings on campus are older, so it doesn't have the necessary mechanics or specifications required for the software that we're trying to acquire to be implemented. So before I talk about space scheduling, let's first talk about the work that I did to reduce the occupancy fixed schedule. Like I mentioned in one of the previous slides, most athletic facilities are scheduled as occupied from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Of course, we know that some facilities, the building itself is not actually occupied by people um, throughout the entire 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., for example. So, how can we reduce the fixed schedule? So, to do that, I first identify buildings that we believe has energy saving opportunities. So, buildings that we can reduce the occupancy schedule. And then we need to then identify the air handlers that is feeding into that specific space. The air handler basically the thermostats in a room is connected to the air handlers, and the thermostat is controlling whether the HVAC system is on or off and at what temperature it is set at. So we need to identify the air handler that's feeding into that specific space, and then adjust the occupancy schedule for each of the individual air handlers. And the goal is to reduce energy usage, and it's pretty intuitive. If the occupancy schedule is reduced, that means the the number of hours the HVAC system is running at full capacity is reduced, and then in return, reduce energy usage. And the following changes were implemented back in February 22nd, 2023. Okay, so here are the schedules that I was able to identify and change. So here is the floor plan for Carmichael Auditorium. So for this specific building, we're able to identify these two spaces that I have in circles. As you can see, this space is fed by air handler number 3, and then this area right here is fed by air handler 2. So the original occupancy schedule for these two spaces were Monday through Sunday, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., and we were able to cut it down to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So right here itself, we're able to cut down 5 hours per day. Here is the Eddie Smith Field House, the second floor. As you can see, this space right here is fed by air handler number 3 for this building. And again, we're able to cut down a few hours per day as well. Here is second floor, south portion of Loudermilk Center. And here's the original schedule and then the new schedule. Here is Loudermilk 5th floor. Here is Loudermilk Center 6th floor. So let's talk a little bit about the impacts these changes have had. So the cost of reducing the occupancy hour is 0, because with these buildings, with these specific spaces, we have building automation systems, or BAS systems, where we're able to control the occupancy hours automatically from the back end through the system. So there was 0 cost in reducing the occupancy hours. And just to give a summary, so for Carmichael Arena, we're able to reduce the occupancy hour 25 hours per week. Eddie Smith Fieldhouse, 23 hours per week. And then Loudermilk together, 58 hours per week. Summing it up together, that's about 106 hours per week where the HVAC system was running at full capacity. Now it's running at either reduced capacity or it's turned off. And then if we looking at it annually, that's over 5,000 hours a year that we were able to cut back. So Advanced HVAC is the space scheduling software that is currently used in the Carolina Union since 2014, and we are hoping to expand the implementation of this software in other facilities on campus. So this software gives us even more flexibilities in scheduling occupancy times. So like I mentioned, we've already cut down on some of the fixed schedule, but there could be even more work done, more hours reduced within the fixed schedule through this software. So eventually HVAC is an event scheduling software that allows occupants to identify times via a scheduler. And the platform that we use at University of North Carolina is called 25 Live. This platform, the university has license for it, so there's no additional cost necessary for this. Um, so eventually HVAC identify times via 25 lives when spaces will be occupied. The scheduler feeds the occupancy schedule to Events to HVAC, and Events to HVAC interacts with the building automation system to place these spaces in an unoccupied mode when the space is not scheduled. So for example, for a space that with a fixed schedule of 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., if we only schedule the space for, let's say, 1 to 2 p.m. for a day, that means that the other times within the occupancy schedule, the eventually HVAC software will put it in an unoccupied mode. So it will reduce the occupied time and thus reduce energy usage. So some of the benefits of advanced HVAC, so it decreases energy consumption, specifically operating power consumed by the fans in the air handler units. Um, it decreases chill water usage for cooling and steam usage for heating purposes. It alleviates last minute work orders to energy management. So it gives us a more flexible control of when the building is unoccupied or occupied. So if there are any last minute changes to the schedule, instead of contacting UNC Energy Management Department, the party who is using this software, they can just schedule it on their own as opposed to submitting last minute work orders to energy management. So this will also help with preventative maintenance efforts, meaning that it would increase the longevity of building mechanical systems. Here's some data from the Carolina Union implementation of this software. So the initial investment that they put in was about 3,840. There's an annual fee of 650, and the ROI on this project was less than 2 months, 1.5 months to be exact. And this table right here shows the utility savings as well as the translating it to the cost savings, um, comparing it to November 2023 to October 2024. This was before the implementation, to November 2014 to October 2015, which is the after the initial implementation. So here just shows some of the usage savings in chill water, electricity, and steam. The operation of the Carolina Union is different compared to the operation of athletic facilities. So here's an example of advanced HVAC in an athletic facility setting. This was done, this is from Northwestern University in their basketball arena. So at Northwestern University, they have advanced HVAC that controls the number of air handler units enabled for the arena based on the typical size of the crowd for an event. In 25 Live, they created special event types categorized according to the following. So they're categorizing events based on small athletic events. They have team practice, medium athletic events, and large athletic events. Large athletic events means that there is a higher parts per million of CO2 in the air and thus more air handlers enabled and more energy used. So being able to differentiate different events based on crowd size um, helps with energy savings, right? So for example, if a specific space is for a few hours a day is only for small athletic events, they have it set up where the facility won't be running at the same capacity for large events, which is useful because it's not necessary for all of the air handlers to be enabled when there's only a few people in the space. So this is a practice that UNC Chapel Hill can follow if the space that we have has the equipment necessary to detect the CO2 concentration in the air, and as well as other building mechanics that meets the specification for a vent to HVAC implementation. So some recommendations. So based on all of the research that I've done, I think the best approach to vent to HVAC is to first test them out in large spaces. It's most effective in large spaces with events. So it could be lecture halls, other large auditoriums, as well as the basketball arena, like I mentioned on the previous slide. And then we can focus on buildings with office spaces. Athletic is more unique department on campus because their facilities are being used throughout the day, so it's difficult to schedule each event because there's always people in and out of the building. But based on the very quick ROI that we saw at the student union and all the benefits of using this system, there's definitely potential for this software to be implemented.